course, I'm Mike. Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the pre-show. I am here with Cece and my lovely wife Priscilla, and we're gonna have a little chat while we wait for everybody to sign in. So comment, say hello, let us know that you're here. And tonight's topics is Egypt, mysticism, and the occult. So hello, Cece. Hello, the demon guy, and hello, Priscilla. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited.
I'm so proud of you. You're here volunteering your time. She does exist.
Yeah, I exist, but I'm only here for the Egypt talk.
Of course. Okay. So what is it that you what do you want to learn about Egypt? What kind of questions you got? What do you think?
I think one of the biggest ones is about the reincarnation and why there were so many steps in preserving the body when I feel that now we kind of what we think we know is that it's just the spirit or the soul itself that gets reincarnated or comes back. So that was one of my questions. Why so much care with the body?
All right. So Jason is in the background. If you got answers for that, then maybe we'll get into that. I can see you. But I can see you. Cece, anything you want to get into?
No, just that's a great question. So first off, that's a really great concept to dive into. I think with the Egyptian reincarnation and how they care for their afterlife. I think maybe just to add to that, maybe some of their beliefs around various gods and potentially some of the meaning as to why they have primarily animal heads of various kinds representing their gods. That would be interesting for sure.
So what about the connection with mysticism and the occult? For me, I'd be more like, let's get into ancient symbols and masonry and things like that. And I think I see him nodding his head there. He wants to get into that too. So that's it, I guess. So this is the pre-show. Thank you everybody for popping in for a little bit. For those of you, this is season 4, episode number 1. So here's the intro. Sit back, relax, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Tonight we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultra spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.
Hello. So today is Thursday, January 6th, 2021, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, citizen journalist, and the director of investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. Remember to super chat, click the $ next to your name in the comment box. And if you're in the observation deck, which I see you guys running around for some reason, that's interesting. We're in the Experiencer Hall. So go in, put your questions in the public chat, and I'll try to get to those if I can. So our guest for season 4, episode 1 is Jason Quitt. Jason is a lifetime experiencer who has been studying various energies and various energy modalities and spiritual practices since 2002. He's a graduate of the Institute of Energy Wellness in 2005, author of Egyptian Postures of Power, and Jason has been teaching and lecturing on the subjects of mysticism, astral projection, meditation, and Qi Gong since 2010. Jason has continued his study of ancient systems of mysticism and wellness, shamanism to this day. And he also is 40 minutes away from me. And I like that, fellow Ontarian. So Jason, put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How are you doing? Oh, you have one. That's awesome.
But as a conspiracy theorist, I know that tinfoil actually does not block those things.
So I know, but they still wear them. This is beyond that, what beyond that. So just so you know, I got Cece and Priscilla in the backstage. If you guys want to be brought in at any time, since this is new, just send me a text and I'll bring you in. So I can't hear you. So today we start off with our first icebreaker from Tim the Demon Guy Morrison, and he's going to kick the show off. So you can find Tim the Demon Guy Morrison at the Demon Guy on Facebook and Twitter. So the way this works, Jason, is I'm opening this for the first time. I don't know what it says. He's in the chat. I saw him chime in. Good to see you. And his question is, if you died and had to choose one place to haunt for the rest of eternity, where would you choose to haunt? Yeah, so if you died and you had to haunt a place for all of eternity, where would it be?
Yeah, definitely on the spot. I would say someplace meaningful where people would appreciate it. So either at a large theater or some type of library or some type of university or hall, where a lot of people gather, and then they'll know the story of the haunting of this place.
You know what? I like your thought process, because as an investigator, if that's the common places that people think the ghosts are, then let's go give them the proof there, because that's where they're going to be with all those tools. So I would agree with you on that. All right. So hello to sometimes that happens. I don't know why. I haven't figured that out. Hello, Serena. Good to see you in the chat. So, Jason, just like any other show that we do, the best question I always start with is why are you the way that you are? So how did you get to the guy that you are sitting in front of me right now? Where do you want to start?
Well, that is quite the question, because there's so many things along the path that kind of puts you where you are. I would say that I could start in my early 20s, where I started to have experiences. And I know that you speak with experiencers quite often. In fact, your show is based upon that. And that is the moment I feel I became part of the community, was in my early 20s. And this was around 2002. So you have to remember, this is pre-YouTube. I don't know if I was using AOL or Yahoo for search engines back then, but it was very difficult having experiences back then, because it was hard to find a support, find other people. And for years, I thought I was quite alone in what I was going through. I didn't know anybody that was going through what I was going through. And it all started with a sleeping condition called sleep paralysis. And, I've told this story probably a million times, but that was my doorway into this world, and which led me into the mysteries and to Egyptian everything, because when these things occurred to me, you wake up in the middle of the night and your body is completely paralyzed. You're basically screaming in your body, you're screaming in your mind to wake up, which is extremely terrifying when this starts to happen to you. This was occurring quite often in my life, and I started to get used to it. So it became common to me. And in that state, I started to get a sense of a different body, is the only way I could describe it. And it was like the physical body became my tomb, my sarcophagus. And I had another body that was inside my body, and I could actually move that body around. So I'd be kind of like tossing inside my body, screaming to wake up, move a finger, get out of the experience. And one night I did, and I was just tossing and turning in my body to try to wake up. And I tossed so hard that I popped myself out. And it was exactly the same experience as what people describe as a near-death experience. And I found myself above my body, looking down at my body. I can see myself in bed. And at the foot of my bed, there was a very tall, shadow-like being. And remember, I didn't know any of these things before this happened. And from my limited experience of just knowing just what we're brought up to believe, instantly I thought this was the Grim Reaper. Like I'm out of my body, I'm dead. The Grim Reaper is standing in my bedroom. I thought it was over having this experience. And it just scared me so much that I got sucked back into my body and woke up. This was around 22. I was 22 years old when this event happened. And it was from that point that it opened something inside of me where I was able to kind of step back out of my body to experience whatever that new world was. And that's where I got my start into this whole path that led me to meeting some incredible people. And many of them actually. And that's how I got my start into this community, was through a woman named Joanne Eady.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that don't know, she was the original person that created the conference, the Alien Cosmic Expo, in I think the first one was in Brantford.
Yeah, Brantford. Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember if it was 2014 or 2015. It was around there.
I think it was 16, 17, 18.
It couldn't have been, because I already wrote the book.
Okay, then 15. Then it would be 15.
Yeah. And I was friends with Joanne for years before that. And I would go to her dowsing conferences and her hypnotherapy conferences. And sometimes she would ask me to speak about the different experiences of leaving your body and, what we learned on the other side. And she called me and she said, Jay, I'm putting on this conference, the Alien Cosmic Expo, and you're speaking at it. And originally I told her no, because I'm not part of the UFO scene back then. and I didn't know how I would fit in
Mm-hmm.
to any of that. And you were there too, so you were right there.
And to give you some context, while that was happening, working for MUFON Canada, Stu Bundy at the time was like, yeah, we're going to do an event and MUFON's going to do a little 10-minute segment and you're going to do it. And I was like, no. And I was in a small little conference little room and thinking no one would show up, and that damn thing was packed. And then we both went on that conference. I remember that. We got sucked into it at the same time. And then
Yep.
boom, years passed. Now we're back together. Synchronicity, many, many things to come. So keep going from there. What happened next?
So, it's like we're now on a schedule with Paul Hellyer, who else was there? Stanton Friedman, Travis Walton, Stu Bundy Richard Dolan was there.
Steve Bassett was there. Pope.
Right. So all these big names.
Yeah.
And Jason Quitt. Right. It's my first time.
And MUFON Canada, but I was a nobody then, but so still I was the guy for MUFON Canada. So I was like,
and when I walked into the conference, there was a gentleman sitting right in the lobby, and he had this big poster of an insectoid being, and I don't know if you remember that, and it was Bob Mitchell. I don't know if you remember Bob Mitchell.
No, I do remember Bob. Bob was with MUFON for a while too.
Yeah. And so I walk in and I'm looking at this giant poster of this manted creature. And it was a beautiful picture. Like, it was very well illustrated. And I said to Bob, I go, wow, this is a great picture. It's pretty much identical to what I've seen when I leave my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that caught his attention because he showed up in my lecture where I talked about out-of-body experiences, astral travel, and past lives. So the whole thing was, when you leave your body, you exit space-time, and suddenly you can jump back and forth between different life streams, gain information, or heal, these different lives. So Bob was in that presentation, and after that presentation was done, he was so fascinated with what I had said or presented that he immediately asked me, would I be willing to sit with him and be interviewed by him? I said, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And I sat down, interviewed with him, and he got back to me and he said, Jay, your story there's too much to it to just kind of get an interview. Would you like to write a book with me? Mm-hmm. And this was, and Bob Mitchell, he was kind of famous in Toronto. He was the crime writer for the Toronto Star for 30, 40 years. I mean, he was well known in that circuit. And so, of course, I said yes to him. And we actually became very good friends. We wrote the book, Forbidden Knowledge, Revelations of a Multidimensional Time Traveler, which still makes me laugh at that title because that was Bob's input. Yeah.
That's a good title.
Yeah. Well, it kind of lumped me in with the whole time travel aspect of the UFO scene, which is kind of a strange area to be tied to. But that's how I got into this community, was through Bob Mitchell basically stepping forward and saying he wanted to tell my story. And I'm entirely grateful to him. And unfortunately, he passed away within 6 months of writing that book, which was very sad because he kind of he brought me into this and then he left. So I was very much alone in the journey that we had kind of planned together. But it's great because the one thing that this community taught me was for about how many years? A good amount of time, I really did feel alone in what I was going through. And when this was happening, I went to rabbis, I went to priests, I went to, counselors, and I straight out told them, what was going on with me. And the look on their faces just told me that they're not equipped to deal with it. Mm-hmm. I was just, so I didn't know where to turn. And having that bottled up inside of you is kind of like poison. Mm-hmm. So to get it out into a book and then to go on radio shows and start talking about these experiences, I found out immediately that what I was describing was experienced by thousands of people, and nothing that I was saying was unique. Mm-hmm. And that's where you kind of get this whole experiencer support connection, where which I think is very helpful, because who else is going to touch this? Mm-hmm. I knew that if I were to talk about out-of-body experiences, jumping into different timelines, out of body, meeting different beings, or having experiences people would talk about, abduction or alien experiences, I knew the labels that are associated with that, and how society looks upon people that speak in those terms and language. And for me, I knew it was a human experience, something that happens to me and others, but we're still behind in our society that basically demonizes anything that is not really known or outside of perceived truth.
You are not alone. I will tell you that for sure. And I hear you when you're saying I don't fit in with the UFO community with that. And it's interesting. Oh, my Siri's going off. It's interesting to hear you say that, because at the time that I was there, I was just UFO, only UFO. I was one of those guys. So I could have looked at you then at that time in that sense, where I was trying to understand how that fit, because I also believed in that, because I'm a paranormal guy who got sucked into UFO. And it was talking to experiencers like you that I realized that there's more out there than UFOs, and the science and the evidence and all that other stuff always led me down this rabbit hole. And I appreciate that. And that's the whole reason why I created this Experiencer Support Association on that, as examples of that. And to hear that you didn't have support then, do you have support now? And if not, welcome to Tessa. We're here for you.
Well, at first, you really have no footing. You have no foundation, because you don't understand what's happening to you. And it's almost been 20 years since things have been going in this direction. And over the past, I'll say it took 15 years to feel somewhat grounded in this. And now I feel comfortable. I know how to navigate those other worlds. I know how to navigate certain situations that arises in these experiences. Mm-hmm. And I feel very comfortable now. So for me, it's just normal everyday life. Mm-hmm. Whereas before it was, you're hiding. Mm-hmm. And there is psychological damage to hiding and not telling your truth. Mm-hmm. I remember meeting like new friends, or I remember like mm-hmm. even, in the past, when I was single and I was, going out on dates, I would never tell the other person about that side of my life, mm-hmm. and that weighs on you heavily emotionally, that you can't mm-hmm. speak your truth. Yeah.
That's definitely a deal breaker on the first date, but maybe, date 4, save that one for the 4th date, and then a tester. You can use it as a tester.
That's right.
I'll interrupt just for a second here. Wise Healing, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. I appreciate that. Thank you, CC, for putting that on the screen. Thank you. You are helping us keep this free for experiencers who need it. So thank you. Okay, so getting deep there. Wasn't expecting that, but like, hey, that's that you are not alone, and you're not the only one that has gone through that is going through that. So thank you for sharing that. Are you familiar with our program called Experiencers Anonymous?
I am not.
Okay,
But
so
you can share with them.
so I'll give you more details about that. Their next one is on the observation deck. It's inside a virtual campus, so I can give you links to that. But then we also do a Zoom link. But it's for people. It's exactly how you described. You just show up and you share your experience as you did. But then the others who are listening, like we have here, you can all talk about your experiences and see what you have to do in common. There's no investigations, there's no research, no journalism. But the whole idea is to get it off your chest. And if you want to report it, then we have the investigative side on that background. So we encourage you to do it, but you don't have to do it. It's not the first thing you do. So when I learned that with MUFON is they always interrupted you and said, make a report and do all these other things. Sometimes that happens when people share me the evidence. I'm like, that's great. Thank you. Blah, blah, blah. Can you make a report so I can give you some answers? But those who are in it going through this experience, they don't have time for that. So they need to let it out. So when they do that through the Experiencers Anonymous program, you feel different. You get it off your chest, and you might just get someone to be like, that happened to me too. Tears and all this other stuff, whatever you need to heal, and then you can move on and you feel not alone. That's important. You're not alone, but do you feel not alone? And the point of that as well is and the hope, because we never know who's showing up, and we keep that part private as it being anonymous. But you might just run into somebody that needed to hear what you said, because they might be quiet and never said anything, and then because you said something and allowed them to speak, and so there's that environment that's available to you. I will hook you up on that afterwards. Just show up and do that, and see and share and help others. For those of you listening, testacan.org/EA. That's how you sign up for it. We'll send you the link to the next one. How do you feel about having a program like that available to you, or in general, I guess?
I think it's fantastic. And what you're doing is fantastic because, like I said, when these things were happening to me 20 years ago, literally it's 20 years now, I didn't know what an experiencer was. I didn't know that title. I just knew that whatever I was dealing with was paranormal.
Yeah.
And the reason I got wrapped into the whole UFO alien thing was because of my original experiences where I said that it was in the out-of-body state that I could see these beings that are described in abduction scenarios or alien scenarios, but I clearly knew that it wasn't an abduction. It was an out-of-body experience. And so I didn't have that kind of preconceived abduction, UFO type belief system, I would say. I kind of got into this in a different way.
And it's interesting because like back then I was like, there's nothing but machines and government and conspiracies and like blah, blah, blah. And now like there's so much stuff that you don't know and I want to share with you, but I don't want to take over the show. So like I've now come with my research to learn and come up with a classification system that could help explain to the UFO community that us paranormal experiencers are experiencing the same phenomenon. So this sleep paralysis, that's an effect, that's technology, that perhaps could be some sort of mental visitation. So the language is still abduction, but it's the location of abduction of the mind. It's a visitation. It's psychogenic. And if it's a shadow being, there's no way to determine whether that being is extraterrestrial or a ghost. It's just a shadow being is described because that's what it looks like. That's the archetype, but it could still be either or. And so with that, when you break it down as a being was observed while you were unable to move, while you were sleeping, it doesn't matter if it's a ghost or an alien. What matters is that happened to you, and we need to figure out why. And we also need to give you resources or guide you to healers that can help you deal with that experience. And then whatever's left, let's investigate that, because we want to be sure, absolutely certain, that it wasn't, grandma walking around in her robe in the middle of the night, and all these things we forget. So we'll get more into. I just wanted to give you that reassurance that I understand that that's not there, and I get it, and we will help you 100%.
It's interesting because like you use the words technology, and it's psychogenic. I was falling into sleep paralysis without intention, right? So someone could argue I was being put into sleep paralysis. But after I broke that spell, well, I'll use those terms, and I left my body, suddenly I knew that sleep paralysis was just a way of putting the body to sleep so that the astral body could now awaken and leave. So at first, it was a very negative connotation. It was very much, these things are doing something to you. They're taking advantage or they're manipulating. So immediately you have this fear based of whatever is going on, it's not you, something else is attacking you. And the more that I got into it, the more I realized it was almost like that shadow being, even though perceived to be a negative entity, was actually an initiator or a guide saying, I'm going to show you how to open this doorway. And once I show you how to open it and you take that step and know how to do it yourself, I'm no longer needed to show you this, which is exactly what happened. So for me, it's like it always starts in fear. And then once it happens 500 times, that fear kind of just goes away and you get completely sensitized to the situation at hand. And then suddenly you take control of it and navigate it yourself. So I found myself through meditative practices, putting myself into sleep paralysis because I knew what it felt like. And then once
you can confirm that you've done it. Yeah. And
then just follow that path, which is how it goes. But that took years to figure out. So for years, I'm talking about all these negative things like, oh my God, this is happening to me, is terrible.
But you figured it out, and you were alone, but you figured it out. And now you can teach, you can show others, which I think you're doing with your book, right?
Yes. And this is where, like you mentioned healing earlier, to find healing, the first messages that I received, or the first communications I received from beings, and I'm not going to say aliens or guides or angels. I don't know what they are. They're just intelligent. And it was always about, you have to heal yourself. Like that was the main concern and the main message that was given to me. It wasn't about anybody else. It was very personal. And they said that my energy field, my life force was very damaged and weak. And because of that state, I would be influenced, manipulated, pulled, made sick, And if I don't correct this now, in this point in my life, I'm not going to be going down the right path set forth that I came into this world for.
Mm-hmm.
And that led me on, I would call it the shamanic journey, where I actually did get into energy medicine. I got into Qi Gong. I started to become a student of Algonquin shamanism. So I went down that healing path, and everything started to align and click, and my experiences with the phenomenon completely changed.
We got a question here from our new member, Wise Healing. Thank you, CC, for putting that up there. Sorry it took so long to get to that. I just wanted him to finish his thought. So he said, I'll read this for our podcast listeners later on. It's hi Jason Robert Wigand. Is that your full name? A proper no. Okay, no. She's talking about something else. A former Navy SEAL has mentioned you on Carrie Cassidy's show regarding your Mars experiences. Guess he met you in Toronto. Can you say something about Mars? And then there's a little bit more there. It says, and also if thank you, CC. Also, if you and Bob may be related, i.e., both from a similar previous existence.
I don't have any Mars experiences. Might be confusing me with Randy Kramer, because I know he was in Toronto as well at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So yeah, Randy was on our closer of season 3, and that was good and bad, but that was an interesting show.
Yeah, no comment.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, well, all right. Well, thank you for that question.
But with Bob Mitchell, definitely we had a instant kinship, like we were soul brothers.
Okay.
And yeah, like I was literally with him, through the thick and thin of the last 6 months that he had to go through. So we were very connected.
She continues with Bob Wingen also said your Egyptian rods helped him when demons took him out after he challenged them. So what are these Egyptian rods? Let's talk about that. Interesting.
Well, the Egyptian rods are many things. They're not one thing. They're a combination of either copper and zinc alloys in a cylinder form that would have materials like quartz and carbon or any other mineral in them. And these are found in Egypt. You see them on the Egyptian statues of them holding postures with the rods. I actually got a pair right here. So these would be rods that you would see statues holding.
Okay.
And basically, it's based on polarities. So you have the push and the pull, the negative and positive polarities. One is electroconductive, one is piezoelectric. So it aids in the movement of electrons or electromagnetic fields through the body. So when you would hold them, it's like kind of like an effect like a battery. So you're reconnecting yourself to the natural flow or natural source of energy in the environment. We can call that life force energy or positive Qi. And absolutely, if you would consider or calling a demon or something that wants to take energy from you or manipulate you, they do so because you have an opening. You have an energy that you carry that they desire, an affiliation to whatever that is, be it fear, anger, pain, trauma, whatever that thing you're holding on to. And when you're connecting to source, when you're connecting to the true essence of who you are, you can do that using the rods or any type of material that's natural. Everything has a life force inherent to it. You could deny access, I would say, to certain things trying to connect with you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well then let's keep that. Let's kind of keep that going. I remember in the pre-show, Priscilla was asking about what was it, recreation and was it
Reincarnation.
reincarnation, preserving the body. Do you want to talk about that? Any?
Sure. The whole concept. Well, you're into the mysteries, right? You're into initiations, so you've probably heard of the initiations or the mysteries of Isis, of resurrection, and Osiris, being dead and then being resurrected by Isis. Basically, with mummification, it was believed that if the body remained intact, and I mean, as long as the spirit could recognize the body as the living image of the life that you lived, therefore the spirit could then walk the earth. All right, so as long as your living image is intact and recognizable to the spirit can walk the earth eternally. And that was the main idea and concept for the mummification ritual. It also had to do with the afterlife, because it wasn't just the body. The body was made, the body was a multi-dimensional body. So there's many of you that argue how many bodies, but I'll say there's 7 bodies that make up who you are. And in Egypt, they even had different sarcophagus to put you in. So, like a Russian doll, it's just a hollow body within a hollow body and so forth. It's the same thing with sarcophagus. There's like 7 different layers in the sarcophagus, and each one was to represent a different body of yours. And in each sarcophagus gave the instructions of what to expect in the afterlife, the judgment, what gateways you have to cross, what demons you may have to come in contact with. But each sarcophagus was an instruction to each body. So you're not just one thing. You're not just a physical body. You are multiple forces combined to create the human experience. And when the physical body dies, it either decays, goes back to the earth, or it's preserved for ritualistic, I call it magical things with the spirit that gave power to what they would say the Ka body is, because they could feed the energy body after you died through different vessels that were connected to you. And that's the way to really keep your spirit alive.
Okay, Thank you. The other question we were pondering too is perhaps the reason behind the animal heads. How did they? Any feedback on that?
Oh yeah, of course. There's okay, so when you go back into early religions, the first religions are connected to animals and the stars. All right, so the first religions, I'd say, like astro theology, and their personifications usually through animals. And in Egypt, for example, it was a desert environment. So the animals that you would see represented in the Egyptian pantheon would be the animals that existed in that environment. And those animals would be symbolic or have allegoric tales of a natural force to explain creation. So if, for example, Horus, the falcon, the bird, he's seen, he's above the ground. He's part of heaven. His right eye is the sun. His left eye is the moon. His body is the sky. So he's represented as the falcon.
Okay.
So basically, the natural forces were given embodiment to the gods. So when you think of the gods of ancient times, many people look at them and say, okay, they're a supernatural being that walked the earth. But to an initiate, they weren't a supernatural being walking the earth. They were an embodiment of different wisdom and knowledge of the forces of nature, symbolically represented as or personified as the god. And when you go to other cultures around the world that have similar type of spirituality, the exact same stories are present, but the animals change or the symbology change to match the location of where these things come from. So if you're moving up north to a more forested area, your gods are now going to take on the elements of those forests and the animals that inhabit those forests. It's the same thing in North America with the totems of the different animals that are in these specific locations. And when you go to different tribes, they have different totems because it's different animals in those locations.
Okay. So is it all conscious, like spiritual? It's not literal? It's never literal?
I would say this because I've had interactions with what people would describe as the gods. They would come in animal head and form. And I truly believe that this is our symbolic or archetypal experience to understand what is happening or what message is going to be conveyed from that supernatural force to you. It will take on the shape of those attributes to relay that message.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm just totally engaged in that. I was just like, yeah, so totally. All right, well, thanks. All right,
but it took me a long time to get there. Just to put that out there.
Lots
it
of
took me a
studying,
long
lots
time.
of yeah. No, it's good. You're there though. So, all right. Let me think. What about mysticism? Like that is something else you got involved with. Oh, I got a message. Do I got a message here? Okay, yeah. So Priscilla's asking, why does the dog head weigh your heart?
Oh, well, the dog head is Anubis.
Okay.
Anubis, and is the son of Nephesis, which is the sister of Set, Osiris, and Isis. And he is the protector of the dead. He's basically, Anubis is the ruler of the deceased and makes sure that you are protected in life and in death. Anubis was also called the dog star, which is connected to Osiris, which is Sirius, star in the sky. And it represented truth. So they, when they would measure the heart, it would be weighed against the feather of truth, which is Ma'at. And the heart had to be pure in truth. And this was also the attribute of why Anubis would lead you down the halls to be faced in the halls of judgment with Osiris, was because he represented that feather of truth, being the dog star of Sirius. Everything goes back to an astrological allegory, is what I'll say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Tanya Chin, thank you so much for that super chat. So she says, can't seem to purchase forbidden knowledge, even Kindle. Is there a way to purchase? Big fan of Jason Quitt.
No, at this time, I have taken all my books away.
Why? Why would you do that?
Because I feel like over the past 10 years or 20 years, I've grown a lot.
Okay.
And there's a lot of things in those books that I wish were not in there. A lot of personal things. Remember, there was a time where I was naive enough to think that the book that I wrote with Bob would never go anywhere. It would never reach it. I thought it would just be like, something I would take to the Total Health Show and say, here's my book.
Yeah.
You know, I never, ever thought that it would actually go out into the world and reach people. I never believed that. So there's a lot of things in that book that I don't feel comfortable putting out into the world anymore. But I have a completely different perspective now than what I did 10 years ago. So my hope is that I'm going to rewrite a similar book to that. But I'm going to take out the conspiracy stuff. I'm going to take out the alien stuff and just go right into consciousness and the initiation into other spheres of mind.
Could it all be connected though? Maybe it's part of it. Maybe it's not just one person or one entity responsible for it. Maybe they're all connected in your experience. I haven't investigated any of your experiences, but I mean, what do you think? Like, maybe what came first, the alien or the download, like the messages?
Well, I think that I think that we start to believe what's common. We believe what makes us feel safe. And for example, if I go out in a field with some people and we see a UFO in the sky, and I say, oh my God, this is my first experience. I've never seen a UFO before. And then you have somebody next to you who's seen hundreds of them, and they'll turn to you and say, oh, that's a Palladian ship, and Commander Ashtar and this and that, and you have zero experience. So you immediately listen to their story and say, okay, well, you know what you're talking about. That kind of explains what I just experienced. So I feel like when we first start into this, we're highly influenced. We can be easily manipulated into belief systems about the phenomenon simply because that's what everybody believes. Or there's a lot of information that people corroborate saying this is what it is. And over the years, I've realized that it's not what they're saying it is. And it takes people off the path, but sometimes I feel like they need to be taken off the path to kind of find their real compass. So I don't want to be a person, like if I know something over the years changed, or if I have a different explanation, I'm not going to continue spreading the information where I thought this is what it was, where now I know it's not what it was. You see?
Yeah, and like, so with the ultra spectrum classification system that I created, it's to prevent or at least help people that do that, dial it back to the root. So whatever you call it, like let's take beings for an example, as we go back to your shadow figure, that's the term that you use to describe it. Alien, ghost, apparition, it's a being observed. So at least at the end of the day, no matter what you're trying to identify it or classify it as, if we can agree that you're confident that it was a being by the definition of a being, like it was solid matter in your room, then you can start to have a conversation about how anything got into the area, into the space. When we have people that say, yeah, for sure, that's a Pleiadian thing and whatnot, they're very confident, but they're calling it Pleiadian because how much of that is belief? How much of that is what they think it might actually be, or how much of that are they actually seeing in reality? Because you might be viewing that location in the third dimension, but perhaps they have a psychic ability that's that they're unaware of, and they're viewing it in the interdimension. in the ether, in the ultraspectrum. So in that moment in time, you got two experiencers looking in the same spot, but one calls it this, one calls it another. Who's right and who's wrong? But you can agree, I hope you would agree, when you have a conversation and you classify this event, if I were to measure them separately, that it was aerial activity. And it was something that happened in the sky, and one subject was able to see it perhaps psychogenically in their mind, while the other subject was not able to see anything at all, but not ruling out the possibility that it was there at all. And then what we do is then we start to say, well, you know what? Oddly enough, they both have blue eyes. They both have A-type blood. They both, so there's something dim, with all those who see them in such a way. So if you're going to rewrite your book, I would still include the index events, perhaps maybe have a conversation or look at the ultraspectrum or try to bring it down to the root and just stop using the labels,
Exactly.
and stick to the facts. Something was in my room, something I was unable to move. And then we can interpret, what that was. It could be technology. It could be.
All the experiences that I personally write about in the Forbidden Knowledge book, none of that has changed in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
None of it. So when I rewrite it, those stories will not change at all, not one word.
Good.
The only thing that changes is the perspective of it, like growing up with those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, Bob Mitchell, he was the alien guy. So in my book, I would say half of the book is my experiences and half of the book is talking about like alien races and conspiracies in the government, some pretty dark stuff, right?
Still true today, though. Still possible. Hasn't been solved yet.
That is true. That is true. But it's not me. I can only speak to what has happened to me. Mm-hmm. And what have I experienced and what I know. I could speculate of these different events, or I could speculate about different conspiracies, but that's just speculation. It's not something that has actually happened to somebody that they can now talk about and relate to other people.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Okay, so we're going to pause right here, but we'll continue after a message from our sponsors. Also, if you're listening to this audio-only version, head over to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association, or go into the Experiencer Hall in the observation deck so you can see the video that is going with this audio. Unless you're watching this on the replay, it won't be in the observation deck. So remember, you are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association, and we will be right back.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. people that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. Just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolamembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
Welcome to the Observation Deck, a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind virtual platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus, just like you would in real life. First, you install the application and design your very own unique avatar. Then you're free to explore the various areas of the campus at any time from anywhere. There's so many areas and activities to choose from on the platform. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, a large expo hall, a movie theater, a nightclub, an art gallery, and even a beach. Come attend a conference, or take a class, or hear a lecture. Meet new friends and interact directly with presenters. It's all right here on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Where in the world will you go?
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today by going to tesacan.org/EA. That's TESACAN.org/EA. Welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Did you know that we have a private community chat for members of our YouTube channel? If you become a member, you will get bonus content like exclusive videos, including bloopers, behind the scenes, and members-only Q&A. Also, if you've ever experienced unexplained phenomenon and an event involving paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid, head over to tesacan.org/reporting system. Let the others who have already reported be that example that we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for those reports, we would not be able to do what we do, and for that we thank you. I'm still here with Jason, and how are you doing?
Great.
Good, man.
Good to be back.
Good to be back. Let me see, just check the comments here to see if we got anything else. We got one from, do have a question from my members, and you know what? Yeah, I'll ask it first. I was going to ask my question, but I will not trump you. All right. So CC asks, Jason, when you have astral experiences, do you interact with other humans? And if so, have you ever met someone you've interacted with in astral, in the physical?
Yes. Extremely rare, I would say, personally. I've seen my wife more than once in the out-of-body state and interacted with her. there was a spiritual advisor or teacher that I studied with. His name was Sri Sri Ganapati Sashanananda Swamiji. He visited me a couple times in that out-of-body state. And there was another woman, her name was Maddie Noland, who came to visit me in the outer-body state. And these were highly trained people that spoke about these things a lot. So when I saw them, I wasn't too surprised. Yeah. But it's usually things that don't look like us, like those shadow beings, or things described as alien, which I have questions about because I don't believe that they're alien at all. They may be extra dimensional, or they live in a different sphere that's connected to this earth or plane or connected to us, but I don't think it's what we see in the movies. That's what I'll say. And also the dead. So family and friends that have passed over sometimes would come and visit in that. So, you're dealing with what we call the phenomenon in varying degrees, where it's not just one thing, like you were saying before. Mm-hmm. It's like in this state, suddenly it's like a meeting place or a doorway outside of the physical.
It's another space, an outer space, somewhere that's not here. And no matter what you call it, just like that, like we all should agree that there is in fact another place. And what we're experiencing over time, through my studies, at least working with many people, is that there's different methods and different ways to connect to that space. So for you, astral travel, out of body experience, that's your method in which you are able to use meditation, from what I'm hearing, to get to that place.
That's
some
right.
People could remote view. Some people could do, those are all different types of methods. But some people, like me, as an experiencer, I had uninvited download in a sense. So that place came to me. But so there's evidence that there's something out there. So for you, if out of all the, we'll say, conspiracies, out of all the possibilities in this ultra spectrum, what is that other place for you? What would you call it? And you can go any religion, any myth, any story, but to you, what is that?
I believe that it is a dimension, call it the fourth dimension or the astral plane. And it's a world in which we exist in currently, at a higher dimensional place. And our consciousness is there and above it as well. As in, there's various, if I could describe it this way, various spheres, all right? A number of them. Some people call them dimensions, but that just doesn't make any sense in my mind. And you exist in all of it. Okay, it's like a string. Like you literally exist in all of those places simultaneously. And here in the physical, we experience it as physical life. And we're here for a specific amount of time to experience it. And then the body dies. But as this thing is occurring, what we call life is occurring, we are also in those spheres. And sometimes we get a glimpse of those other spheres, and it just kind of shows us that there's more to our experience than just the 3D physical world. So when you say, what happens after death or pre-birth, where do you go? My answer is you never left. There was never a time when you are not there. and there's never a time that you do not exist there. And to exist in that way in those spheres means that you play a role and exist in these physical experiences as well. So when it comes to reincarnation or transmutation of elements, energy transfer, even if you are not here, you will remain here, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
As in, there is only one consciousness, there's only one supreme being, and you are experiencing that in its totality as you go through these spheres.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because the follow-up to that is because like multiple religions, multiple theories on all of these, or multiple, can't say theories, but multiple explanations for their interpretations of the things they observed at those times. A lot of things are copied over the years, except for Christianity that happens to have it a little bit flipped, but still similar if you know what to look at. So my question is for you, why you can pick any religion, you can pick any mythology that has these similar characteristics and teachings. Why Egyptian mythology and not, say, even an older one, Sumerian and or what's the one ahead of that, Greek mythology and Roman mythology, that have a lot of similar stories to describe the same thing. So why Egypt for you? Egyptian.
I think it is because of, I don't like to use the term past life, because in my mind it's simultaneous. So for some reason I'm very attuned to those time periods, or to those mythologies.
They feel comfortable. They feel they resonate with it. It's like a memory.
Exactly. It's like when I would read certain things, it's like, well, that's what I already believe. They may use different terms, but what they're saying is exactly what I know. And one of the things that really popped out to me was there was a graphic, or there was hieroglyphics, and it showed this shadow person with the Ba, which is the astral body of the deceased, and a portal between them.
Okay.
And I'm looking at this picture, this hieroglyph, it's like 4,000 years old. And I'm like, that's literally what I saw in my bedroom without knowing anything about Egypt. There was the shadow, I was the astral body, and the portal would open in the room and we would travel together. And when I was studying Egypt and the religions, this is like 10 years after these events happened, suddenly, it talks about how the shadow is an aspect of the soul, is an aspect of your body that accompanies your Ba, the astral body, when you're dreaming at night and in the afterlife, and that the shadow is assigned to you at birth by Anubis, the god of the dead, to watch over you, to guide you, to initiate you, to protect you through life, so that when you die, it will be there for you to take you through that journey of death. And this is like very ancient texts that I'm now looking at and trying to interpret now in my life. And I'm like, this makes total sense, because that's how I experienced it on the other side. So suddenly, like the hieroglyphs, suddenly the stories came to life for me, because I was kind of reading experiences they would write about in their stories that happened to me now. So that's why I have an affinity to Egypt, because it's a way of explaining the phenomenon as well, using classical text.
And that is evidence that it existed that far back, and what is happening then is happening now. And like you said, like past life or same life, interdimension is space and time. It could be happening then and now as well. Like Who knows?
Yeah.
It's the same place, and they all knew about it. Serena asks a question regarding Egypt. Did any of the god archetypes you interacted with ever speak about Atlantis and its relationship to those current times and ancient hidden history? Great question, Serena.
But that's actually exactly what they wanted to speak about. It's the relationship. What they told me was that the archetype of Atlantis, and I'll just use the word archetype because I can't physically prove that Atlantis existed, even though I think it did. But basically, they're saying what is occurring now on planet Earth is a complete reflection and reliving of the times of Atlantis, of a time where the human race has stepped further and further away from the natural order of things. And because of that, they basically align with chaos. And when you align with chaos, eventually destruction will come in one form or another. And I believe in our society, we're at that point where the world is not in a place that it should be. And we're kind of teetering on this edge of, is our society going to survive with our technological and spiritual advancements? I think that's also why a lot of experiencers are being awakened now, because we can feel that something is not right. And these experiencers are like the whistleblowers. They're coming out and saying, this consciousness or experience came to me and said, if we don't shape up, this bad thing is going to happen.
It's possible. It's possible. I can't rule that one out for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Wise Healing, you said Jason has those dark shadow beings. Sorry, have those dark shadow beings who were trying to teach you, i.e., with the World War II plane that kept crashing until you accepted your destiny and the possible future with an orange sky gone now. So I would like to know what that's all about.
Oh, that's actually from the book Forbidden Knowledge. So thank you for reading that.
There you go. You got a fan. Yeah.
That was really interesting. It wasn't a fun it wasn't a fun memory, because it's like you're in the Matrix. The movie The Matrix. It's like they didn't get it right, so they keep restarting the dream. Okay, you failed, restart the dream. I was caught in a loop in this dream, and what the dream was I was in World War II, driving this plane, and the gears are stuck. I'm going down, right? And I'm hitting this building. So the plane, it's a small plane, and I'm gonna go right into this building. And I'm basically kicking and screaming. I'm pressing buttons. I'm trying to pull, anything I can to not hit this building. And I keep hitting this building and dying. And right when I hit the building, it goes blank. I hear a voice in my head said, oh, like, you failed, try again, type of thing. And then suddenly I'm right back at the beginning of the dream. It's like stuck in a dream loop.
Did you have control each time? Were you aware? Did you do different things each time?
Oh, yeah. Each time I was trying to figure, it's like a mystery, it's like I'm trying to figure out what I have to do differently to save myself in the plane.
Did you ever have the option to not go in the plane?
No, it started as the plane is going into the building, right? So you have only a couple seconds to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And at the end, I was, because it's like Groundhog's Day. At the end, I just said, I'm just going to enjoy the show. I'm just going to sit back and relax and smile as I crash into this building. And that was the answer. That's what got me out of the loop.
You just accepted it. I guess,
it was acceptance, but the whole meaning, what I gathered, the meaning behind that was, it was fear that enveloped me. And the moment I let go of that fear and I just accepted the reality of the situation, suddenly it was like a weight that just kind of lifted off me, and I was freed from that loop.
Good.
Yeah. I forget the last thing they asked. But...
Well, she just asked if it was gone, I think.
Oh, and the futural red sky thing. See, I don't know about that. See, that was the scariest. That was like the first experience I had, which I would, classify under time travel or timeline jump, where I was taken without. I was just taken. I couldn't stop it. And I was taken up through the roof, like what people would describe as, something, you dissolve through the roof. And I was shot up into outer space, and I could see the earth underneath. And as we shot down back to the planet, it was a scene that was shown to me where the earth was basically, it looked like it was destroyed. The trees were burnt, the sky was red. It was a bad scene. I'll just put it like that. The answer is I do not know. I don't know if that's our future. I don't know if it's our past. I don't know if it's a simultaneous lifetime or a simulation of what could happen if we follow the path we're on. So I've never received an answer for those events at all.
And you haven't seen anything that would resemble what you saw yet?
Not yet, no.
Yeah, that'd be concerning, right? Like, I mean, you hope, but then when you see it, what are you going to think? This is it?
Possibly. Well, you would say this is it in this body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's no such thing as it.
Yeah, that's true.
And, sometimes it makes me laugh where they say, when you die, you die. It's just lights out, goodbye. And I look at the person, I said, I really hope you're right.
Yeah, like, don't be so sure, right? Like, no. Don't be so, sure that there's another side too. Like, I mean, that's why people do this, some that noetic and parapsychology, and dive into that part to confirm that there's an afterlife. I mean, with the way things are going these days, if we knew for sure there was something there, it might be a little difficult. So I got a question. Tell me about the Ankh and how that may or may not, in your opinion, tie in with the occult.
Oh, well, that's easy. Being occult just means hidden. But okay, the Ankh is I don't have one here, but I could make something similar. Okay, so here's like a crystal. So an Ankh is basically a vertical staff, and then a horizontal. So you have two. So you have a horizontal and a vertical, and then on top of it you have this kind of round thing, this almond shape thing. And if you take the top off, it's what we would call the Tau, which looks like the letter T. And the Tau and the Ankh are both connected to the astrological sign Taurus, the bull's horns in Taurus. And it was the symbol of life. Uh-oh. Ghost?
No. Just it was something I was thinking of, and then my wife just came upstairs to grab mine.
Oh my
Thank
God!
Thank you. So this is my Ankh that I have that's on my wall in my office here.
Beautiful.
So I'll just I'll hold on to that for you.
Good. So you can see like there's three aspects to it. You have the circle, you have the horizontal, and you have the vertical. And originally, the Egyptians, I'll just put this out here, the Egyptians were a cattle farming community. All right. So pre-Egyptians, they were cattle farmers. And if you look at the thoracic vertebrae of a male bull, it's the same shape as the Ankh. All right. So it has been hypothesized that the original shape of the Ankh came from the bone in the bull, because the bone is deified as Taurus, the bull, the astrological symbol in the sky. Because the bull and Taurus, and Pleiades is within Taurus, is one of the most significant constellations in our sky, because that is what told ancient humans when to plant seeds, when to harvest. So basically, it was their calendar. It was life. Now, the symbol of the Ankh is represented with the Aten, or the sun disk, and it's usually represented as the sun giving the rays down, holding the Ankh, which is the gift of life, to those. And it was the symbol, yeah, exactly. And the symbol of life was represented as the Ankh with the air. So Shu was the air that was represented as the Ankh. The waters, baptism, and light, the sun rays. So basically, it was the symbol that was given as the Ka, the energy of life, the breath of life, that is the gift of the gods to us that keep us alive.
So interesting. So in some of my work in studying and understanding of what my experience, I had a recent, so on the solstice was my last, I would say, upgrade or whatever you want to call it. And the Ankh was kind of what I was focused on, which is why I'm asking this question. But the way it was shown to me, it was in the vertical element, which is also the symbol I have for Experiencers Anonymous, but that was created before I saw it that way. And then for some reason, the significance in this vision or this dream or whatever, I was doing Reiki as well, as Priscilla was doing a Reiki session for me at that time. So what are your comments on it being perceived from this perspective?
Usually,
it's a different shape.
Yes. Usually when it's held from the hands of the rays of the sun, it's usually held underneath the nose of the person or in front of their eye. The opposite direction, actually. Oh, no, sorry. But anyways, basically when it's sideways, it could also represent the physical eye. Look at it. So you have the eye and the stem of the eye going into the brain.
Right. I see. Yeah.
Because it's your eye is the receptacle of light, and it's where you take in illumination. It's the gift of life is through the eye. So they would hold the Ankh in front of the eye to symbolize that you're taking in the light, and it would be in front of your nose or your mouth to awaken. They even had ceremonies called opening of the mouth ceremony, which is basically the gods gift you Ka and life again, to be resurrected and to live in spirit and life, to be immortal with this type of energy, and the Ankh was the symbol of it. I find it very interesting how the Ankh is a precursor to the Tao, and the Tao later came into Christianity. And if you look at the Tao, which is just like the T, which was the symbol of Taurus, the constellation, it was also the scales. So if you have the T, if you put the scales on either side, you have the scales of judgment. The Tao, which is, I don't know if you know about numerology and symbolism of alphabet, but the Tao is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, 22. 22 means cross. There's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, which is the secret symbol for the skull. The skull has 22 bones, so skull and cross and bones is the Tao.
And it's 22 in the Phoenician alphabet as well, for the same reason. And yeah, that being the last letter in the alphabet.
Yes. And, Jesus was on the cross.
Mhm.
And where did he die? Golgotha, which translates to the skull. Again, 22, the cross, skull, same terms. Like I said, everything is related to numbers, astrology, and the allegories that go back, which have created belief systems and spiritual identifications and personifications of natural forces.
In my studies, I'm just trying to find a picture real quick as reference. Yeah, I'll just do this right here, and then I'll get to that.
And Aleph, the first letter of the alphabet, is the ox, the bull.
Right.
So you have the beginning of the alphabet representing Taurus, the bull, and you have the last letter representing Taurus, the bull. So it's very interesting of the bull worship, which has to do with the stars and planting and seeding, because my theory, and this is my theory, is that by learning the stars, our ancient humans learned when to plant and when to harvest. And that one simple act of learning the secrets of when to plant and when to harvest changed our ancestors from hunters and gatherers to farming communities, which completely altered the course of human history. And that is why astrology and the symbolism of astrology, especially Sirius, Orion, Taurus, Pleiades, played a significant role in the symbols of our past.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with this deity at all?
Yeah.
So Inanna or Ishtar, or it could be Isis, Mother Mary, all that stuff. Through my research, my understanding is that this is the original symbol for the Ankh. Would you agree to that? Do you know about that? And if so, like, that would be older than Egypt. So that would be, I guess,
it's the symbol called Shen.
Okay.
That's the Shen, which is also Egyptian, the Egyptian Shen. It's pictured in the hands of the Ba. If you look at the pictures of the Ba, the Shen is the symbol for eternity. Infinite eternity, space. That's what it means in Egypt.
Okay.
As you can see, this is a highly personified image with multiple symbology. Okay, so what you're looking at here is probably an entire text of information to unravel just by looking at this picture. You're standing on the two of those lions or some type of beasts, which was the symbol of, what was this? The same symbology as in Egypt as well.
Interesting.
She's wearing the hat of the fish gills. She, like I said, there's a lot to unravel.
You got the wings. There's a lot of characteristics. So I always resort back to Sumerian, only on the alleged fact that it may be the first or the oldest. And then when I can, in investigations, considering the source, if I have anything to compare to, since it's all very similar, then we go back to that one. So I just thought that was very interesting to learn that. Okay, so Wise Healing, you said you seem to suggest all the experiences with the dark beings were just memories and not significant. Do you believe one needs to make a definitive choice to follow either the light or dark? Good question.
It's a difficult question because, these are human terms ultimately. And you start to learn that there is no division between light or dark. It's one thing of the same, like the yin and yang. You cannot separate one from the other. the light is what casts the shadow. Like they are one in the same. I would say that we push away our experience of the dark because it's something we're afraid of. And ultimately, it is a piece of us that we have disconnected, that we fear, that is hurt, could be a traumatized piece of us. So it's not black and white at all. It's many, many shades of gray, and it all goes back to healing, because I've had what people would describe as very dark beings come to me in an attacking type of method, I'll say. Mm-hmm. And instead of fighting them, I embrace and heal them. Okay. And the experience changes immediately from something that was negative to something that was the most beautiful experience ever, because you changed the outcome of that situation. And that took also a very long time to understand. And don't get me wrong, there's some times where a being will come to me that I would feel a very negative intent, and I would instinctually fight it or get rid of it. But there are moments where those beings come where I know instinctually they came to be healed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she says again, I saw tell your story at the expo with Bob Mitchell. Yeah. You were dressed completely in black. I kept seeing dark forms drifting around the room. I asked if you were a dark being. What do you say now?
Oh, that was funny. Oh my God, that was funny. I remember that. I'm not a dark being. I don't play with dark forces at all. I consider myself a student of the light and understanding consciousness, hope, love, understanding, compassion, forgiveness. That's my whole entire being. Mm-hmm. It's really funny because people have this symbolic representation of what, like, look, I'm wearing black right now, right?
I was gonna say something.
Yeah, like, and I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and like, what did I listen to? Like industrial and like metal and things like that. Anyways, that's what you wore back then. But in Egypt, for example, black was a sacred color. Why was black important in Egypt? It was the main color in Egypt was black. Why? Because for the Egyptians, black symbolized life. Because when the Nile was full, when the Nile was inundated with water, the water changed the soil into black soil, which in a desert is the most amazing thing. So for them, black meant life. It was the black soils that gave them food and substance. So that's why for them, black was a sacred color. In shamanism, whenever they would do ceremonies, especially energy healings or releasing entities, they would wear black because they believed that black was the color of protection. It would hide their energy from the entities so that when they're dealing with dark forces, they will become invisible to them.
Right.
That's what it is. And when you come to the mineral world, for example, if you look up the metaphysics of what the most highly protective crystals are, they are the crystals that are black. So they say, if you want protection, get a black tourmaline. If you want protection, get a black shungite, black kyanite. The irons, the really dark, heavy metal minerals is what they say to use when it comes to dealing with any dark forces, because these are the protection minerals, which have one characteristic. They're black in color. Yeah.
Interesting. I
So-
have a black obsidian that my wife got me as well. So that's great. Serena says or asks, is there a relationship between the bull symbology and the rising zodiac sun at spring equinox and Egypt or Atlantis?
The simple answer is yes. Okay. It has to do with the rising of Taurus. Sometimes they say that the morning star, like Sirius as the morning star, or Pleiades as the morning star, when it rises over the horizon, the sun enters the house of Taurus, which means you can't see Taurus in the sky anymore. It disappears. And when Taurus disappears, they had all the mythologies of the bull sacrifices himself, just like how Osiris sacrificed himself, or these other solar deities, they sacrifice themselves behind the sun, so that you now have your spring season of growth. So this is when you plant your seeds. Mm-hmm. So yes, the bull symbology is related to the spring equinox, the planting of the seeds, and the death of that sign behind the sun. So, that's also where you get the mysteries of, death and resurrection, because it's the sun makes these constellations invisible for certain periods of time, and then they're reborn as the morning star and then come back into the sky.
So that popped in two questions for me. I'm gonna group them together. What is the black sun? Because you said black is like protection, and there's that conspiracy, black sun. So I'm interested to hear your take on that, and be specific here. Which star is the Eastern Star?
Okay, well, the Eastern Star is Sirius.
Okay,
and it becomes the Eastern Star around Christmas, or like the Star of Bethlehem, because it points to where the sun rises on December 25th on the horizon. As for the black sun, I'm actually have no idea. I've never really gone down that rabbit hole yet. I don't know anything about that.
There's still time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know that people, the only thing I know about that is when people sun gaze, you hear people sun gazing.
Mm-hmm.
When a person looks at the sun for a certain amount of time, it burns the rods and the cones in the eyes.
Okay.
And it actually creates a black sun. So like if you're staring at the sun, like doing sun gazing, within a couple seconds, that sun is going to disappear and it's going to be black with like a corona around it, because it's like the same as like winter blindness. When you go out and shovel the snow, and then suddenly you walk in the house and like all you see is just like this green.
Mm-hmm.
It's a similar effect to like sun blindness.
So why would we want to sun gaze? So if that's an effect of sun gazing,
yes.
So let's just assume that black sun symbology or movement is from because they've seen that from sun gazing. What benefits do we get from that?
Again, the sun is life in the sense of photons and electromagnetic fields. And there are certain rays in the sun, especially UVB, mm-hmm. which enter your skin and body that actually create the hormone vitamin D, which is responsible to regulate everything, your muscle growth, bone growth, your basically everything. Vitamin D is the base of regulation. It comes from the sun.
Right.
So, I've heard talks of many different sun gazers, and they're saying that there are so many blood capillaries in your eyes that I think the full amount of volume of blood that goes through your eyes within 20 minutes, I think, is the entire amount of blood in your body. So they're saying by looking at the sun, they somehow clean the blood with the frequencies, or the bands of frequencies from the sun. I don't know too much about that, but there seems to be people that do it. I would not recommend it because it does damage your eyes. The only time I would ever look at the sun would be in the moments of sunrise and the moments of sunset, like right at the end and right at the beginning. I think that's the safest time to do it. And, when the sun was above your head, they called the sun the Most High, the highest sun. And it was the strongest sun of creation, because when you're standing under the sun, God's above you and it casts no shadows. So it's like there's all these connections and allegories when it comes to
And that you just went down the Mason the Mason rabbit hole there. I hear you. And I might right up there with the whole dark being things, being a Mason. So all right, let's I want to ask one more question to make sure we get it in so we don't forget it before we do our final segment, which will be another question which will go on for a little bit. Why don't you just talk about, you're writing a new book, or you have a new book that just came out? Did it just come out?
It just came out. I still have not received my author copies yet. That's how new it is. But you can get it from Amazon pretty quickly. It's called Egyptian Postures of Power, Mysticism, Meditations and Movements.
Right.
And it's a completely new book. Like I originally released The Salute to the Sun, which is this book.
Okay.
And this is the original book, which basically just had the postures that were based on the statues of Egypt with explanations of what they were. But that's just what this book is. You can see how thin it is. So this new book is an explanation, like what I just shared with you, about Egypt, mysticism, meditations, basically the philosophy and mysticism of these ancient times. So there's about almost 200 pages of brand new information. And then at the end of the book, I go through the postures again, and I added other meditations as well. So for me, it's like a complete relaunch of a book. It's the book that I always wanted to write, but never could. And now with COVID and being home, I can sit down and write again. So that's what I did. Yeah.
So that can be found, on Amazon? It
can be found on Amazon. And it could also be found on my website, thecrystalsun.com. But I have not received the copies yet. Amazon says it's coming at the end of the month. So when I receive them, then I could personally sign them and send them out, or you can just get them from Amazon, and it'll probably come a lot faster. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Okay. There was another question Priscilla had asked, but I'll just wait till she comes back. What do we see here? Let's go with, I don't know. Is there something anything else you want to bring up?
I just want to say that I've taken a lot of time off. A lot of people might be upset that I haven't really been around for the past couple of years. And I kind of had to get back into the real world and live. But now with COVID and everything, I'm back to having time where I can actually look at emails again, right? And I have time to actually sit and write and do shows again. And like even before the show, I was telling you, it's like I'm pretty nervous coming back on, because it's, you know, when you're away for so long, it's like coming back, it's like starting again. So no, this was good. I enjoyed it.
I'm glad. I'm glad. This is our first one of the season. We had a break too. I mean, this is good. That's a good way to do it. All right, so I'm just going to ask you a question, and just so we can move along here. So she had asked, what does Amun-Ra represent?
Oh, well, the answer is at the end, the Ra. It's the representation of the sun. And you have 3 representations of the sun that gained the most popularity. One, you had Horus, the sun. So Horus Ra, which is the birth of the sun, the rising of the sun, which is the child. And then as the sun gets to the most high point, like we talked about earlier, it becomes Amun-Ra, the most high solar deity of, you know, power, virtue, symbolized as the ram, which was you know, you would see a lot of gods having ram horns on their head, which was the symbol of virility, strength, and power of the sun. That was the symbolism of Amun-Ra. And then as the sun sets, the sun is dying, it's the old man, it becomes Atum-Ra. And that's where we get the word autumn from, or atonement, because usually at the end of life, the end of the life of the dying sun, that is the time of reflection on the waters of how we atone for our sins before we enter the afterlife. So you have the 3 aspects of Ra dealing with those gods: Horus, Amun, and Atum.
Cool. All right, so this is going to be our new segment. So this is our final segment. It is called Sorry, Not Sorry. The whole point of this particular segment is we're going to take an alleged fact from a book about flat Earth conspiracy, and we're going to discuss how we feel about it. So this is Sorry, Not Sorry. All right. So that was coined by my lovely wife Priscilla. That was her idea, I love it. And so we're going to wing it right now and do this for the first time ever. So the way this works is I got this. So I have this book. So the season book for these questions is going to be the Flat Earth Concordance. It's by Paul Rains. It's this amazing large book full of pictures and Bible passages. So the way that it's written, we're just going to read it as fact, and then we're going to have a conversation about it. All right. So page number 1. We're not going to do the whole book. This is just page number 1.
I want to do the whole book.
You want to do the whole book? Well, then you come on every show. So before I read that, though, why don't with all the knowledge and experience that you have and all the things you've seen, you know, what shape is the Earth?
Round. I'm quite confident that it's round. In astral journeys, it's round. I've flown around the world 12 to 14 times. So I know what it's like to go around it. Yeah.
But like, did you feel the roundness of the globe on this flat plane? I don't know. I'm just trying to that's why.
I'll just say that there are ways to measure the curvature of the Earth.
But what about what do you see with your eyes? What do you see with your eyes, though?
Well, I would say that we're not high enough.
Okay.
All right. The Earth is so huge that even in an airplane, it's almost impossible to see the curvature.
Okay.
Because we're not that high. Even at low Earth orbit, it's not that much of a curve.
So for this first fact from this book, and I quote fact, it says, Earth is a circle. And so from Isaiah 40:22 says, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. Isaiah 40:22. And then here's a picture, and then so how do you feel about the possibility of that being true? Earth is a circle. Can we rule that out as a possibility?
I'm not the authority of that.
Neither am I. Have you ever been to space? Have you ever been to space?
Not in the physical body.
Okay.
But I do believe the thousands of people that have explored that area, who are smarter than me, they go through this. But these lines that you just read, especially from the Bible, they come from antiquity, even before the Bible. It talked about you have Nut and Geb. Nut is the starry sky, Geb is the earth. You have Shu, the air, the atmosphere, that it's like the pillar that holds the firmament of the heaven above the earth. In ancient religions, they talk about the world tree, or the four pillars set at the corners of the world to hold up the firmament of the sky. And these were just ways of explaining, I guess, our place on the earth, between heaven and earth. And I think over time, there's a case of broken telephone.
Well, yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll get into my part after. But so he provides another passage to prove his point, or his fact, that Earth is a circle, and that is Proverbs 8:27. So I'm busting out my Bible from Sunday school, back from when I was 15. So Proverbs 8:27, where are we here? Says, "When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth."
Ooh.
So I'm not going to accept that one.
They're using Masonic terms in that Bible.
Well, but they are, though. That is Masonic.
Of course.
There's a lot of mysticism in behind that to suggest a flat plane. But I've never been to space, so I'm on the fence, which is why this is the theme, to have conversations like this. This is according to someone who takes the Bible literally, and they can. And after everything that we've talked about and what we've pulled from, why not? And I guess what I'm trying to convey through this segment is that we have to. Can we accept the possibility that it may be or may not be at the same time? Because we've never been to space.
Well, you haven't been to space.
You have.
No, I have not been to space either. But there are those that claim to have been. There's evidence to suggest that they've been. And there's a couple ways that you could actually measure curvature using sticks in the sun. To cast the shadow, you can measure the curvature. There's also a way you can do it with the stars. And if you're willing to drive north and south in a straight line, the star alignment will change in its curvature depending on how far you drive. So there are ways to test scientifically, even without going to space, to measure curvature. There are mathematical formulas for that. And what they found is that in ancient times, I think it was even Pythagoras came extremely close to the circumference of the planet. What we figured out now, and it was just using mathematics that they figured that out. So there is a lot of evidence, even if we never went to space, there is evidence that would show you a curve. Yeah. And it's
there's no right or wrong answer. The whole point of this is just because it's
I'm just going to keep giving you answers. Look at a rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the rainbow is the elliptical because it shows the curvature of light through our atmosphere. When you drop a droplet of water, it becomes spherical as it goes through the air. You know, in space, if you believe in space, if you put a droplet of water in zero gravity, it becomes a sphere. So when you look at the planets, it seems like in zero gravity, the natural shape of things will be spherical.
I'm tracking you. I'm with that. I'm on either side of the fence. But the point of the fact that we're arguing right now is the Earth a circle? Final answer. Could it be a circle?
Absolutely, it can be a circle, because who are we to say anything about anything in this world?
Okay. So then they win for that point. But it's context. It's perspective. This is associating of facts.
Yeah.
And that's also an example of when someone would be like, because it says it here, it means it's there. And what I will say is it's Proverbs. So like the whole point of this too is I'm supposed to put on the evidence hat. And as far as evidence goes, I'm looking at it's Proverbs 8:27, and I just read that, and that was one passage. The context is in the entire chapter 8 of Proverbs. So you need to read the whole thing to figure out what that specific line means in context to that chapter.
But at the time they wrote that scripture, were they capable of space travel and seeing the Earth from above?
No. Or maybe our ancestors were. You know, there's a lot of, and that's perspective, right? That's perspective.
I mean, you climb a high enough mountain, I guess. You know.
Does it matter? Does it matter what shape the Earth is?
I think it matters.
Yeah,
I do. I think that humankind has an innate curiosity of their environment and the forces that govern it, and I think that's how we created all our scripture, all our science is based on our curiosity of knowing who we are and our place in our environment. And if we can't agree on the shape of the freaking planet,
I'm just using that conspiracy as an example that as we dive into the ultra spectrum, we dive into the possibilities as explanations, that is one that could be a possibility in the realms of all these other things, because it fits in that whole NASA lies and the government is lying, and if they're lying about one thing, they could be lying about the other thing. But believe it or not, I'm not on either side. I'm not picking a side. But what the flat Earth movement is more known for is pointing out that the government lies. So if the government lied about the shape of the Earth, which really doesn't matter, it's the point that they're lying. So maybe it doesn't, maybe it's a combination of all of these things. But like you said,
I'll completely agree with them on that aspect of things.
Because the government does lie, and they have lied. But because they lied about this, it means they're lying about that. But this is just one fact. That's the rule. We can't go it's just one fact on its own, and then as we go through the book, we can argue the one.
But it's like saying that this person over here told you 99 lies and one truth. But because they said that one truth, we have to start thinking about those 99 lies. I don't know if that's the right way to go about it.
Well, so far we got one truth, because Earth could be a circle. Because that's what he's stating, and that's what we agreed upon. It could be. Not saying it is. It could be. And it's perspective. So the polar projection, the flat Earth map, is simply looking down on the globe and looking at the Earth from above. It doesn't mean the Earth is flat. It just means that's just the vantage point in which they're looking at it. And that kind of gets carried away. It could still be a globe. It could still be a dome. It doesn't really matter to me. It's just I got to get the space to figure out what it is. But as we get further, Again, it's about lies and conspiracies, and they're all in here too, and they have an answer for everything, including aliens, including shadow figures, including all these things. It's interesting. So I'll leave it at this.
You'll have to go through those other ones too. I can't wait to hear those.
Tune in every Thursday, and then we'll do another one, and we'll see where we end up. So thank you, everybody. This is the end. This is the wrap up of it all. If Jason, if you want to hang around at the end, we can talk for a little bit. Sure. And thank you all for tuning in and chatting. Great conversations. Welcome new members. And this is the end of the first episode of season 4, episode 1 with Jason Quitt. And we'll see you next week. That's it, everybody. That is a wrap. That is the end of it all. Thank you for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you back next week, where we'll continue to have this conversation deep down into the rabbit hole in which we call the Ultra Spectrum. Thanks for joining us. I said that already. Oh well, fuck it. Eat the world.